I just don't see why it's better than an icebox.
Well, a refrigerator is more efficient. Keeps food fresh longer. We won't need ice to be delivered.
But the papers will still be delivered and the groceries and all sorts. Or are we to stop that too?
Mrs. Patmore, is there any aspect of the present day that you can accept without resistance?
Oh, my lady, I wouldn't mind getting rid of my corset.
That was a taste of Mrs. Patmore, the head of the kitchen at Downton Abbey, played by the person who's sitting across from me right now. Lesley Nicol won over a lot of hearts playing the brash but caring cook on TV. Now she's done a complete 180, transformed herself into one of the meanest characters you can find in a musical. You can see Lesley Nicol as Miss Hannigan in a new production of Annie on stage now in Toronto. Here to talk about those very different characters.
Yeah.
Could not be more different. Lesley Nicol joins me. How are you?
Hello, Tom. I'm great, thank you. It's so funny hearing that clip because it's such a long time ago, it feels like. But that woman struggled with technology so bad.
Yeah. I feel for her, I understand, yeah.
I do too, because
Yeah.
I struggle with it too.
You're not so different.
No, I'm not.
Do you remember going to see Annie?
I do. I went, I believe it was in the 70s when it was on Broadway.
Yeah.
And I think I was at drama school in London and I went to visit a friend in New York and I didn't know what Annie was because I wasn't brought up with that character, It wasn't on my radar at all. And I went and it knocked my socks off. I mean, it was stunning.
But there was no part of you that was like, oh, well, maybe one day I'll...
No, not for a second. I don't know why I didn't think that because it's a great part.
Right.
But I just loved it. And yeah.
Is it fun to play a villain?
Yeah, it is. It is fun. I mean, what's fun about it is it's fun to kind of introduce different parts to that. You know what I mean? Because
No, what do you mean?
What I mean is, well, without getting too heavy about it.
Come on, let's get heavy.
All right,
It's still early. Let's do
get
it.
really heavy. No person is one thing. Somebody who's mean is not just mean.
Right.
We're all, complicated. So what's fun about this part is, of course, she's horrible to these kids.
Yeah.
But, you kind of figure out, well, what's the reason behind that? And she drinks really heavily, so she's very unhappy. She's very lonely. So that kind of introduces another side to her. So you may not just sit there and hate her. You might think, oh, God, she is a mess.
That's kind of your job as an actor, is to
I think so.
try and find the nuance there.
Yeah,
right?
and therefore there's humour in that. Mm-hmm. There's humour in the fact she's desperate. But there's I hope, a tad of sadness about it because, she's not having a great time.
No, this is your return to stage, no?
Well, do you know what? This is weird. I've just been in London at the Donmar Warehouse doing a play. Couldn't be more different from this. It was very, very tiny theatre, very naturalistic, playing an old farmer's wife. I mean, it couldn't be more different.
Yeah.
But I hadn't been on stage before that for 8 years because of Downton.
So how does that feel? Is it?
I was scared.
It's not like riding a bicycle. It's not
Well,
just get back.
it turns out it is, but I didn't know that. So before I went back to London to do this play and then subsequently this, I had no idea. I was truly a little bit anxious because what if it isn't like riding a bicycle?
Right.
What if suddenly you lose your nerve? Because suddenly you've got people, and particularly in London, they're close. They're right up your nose.
Yeah.
So there's no hiding. And if you lose your nerve, what happens? So, we all have these gremlins, I guess, to a certain, degree. But once I got that under my belt and then I came here, and again, I was joining a production from the West End, so I was a newbie. So that was a little bit like, ooh, how's that going to work? But it is a bit like riding a bike, actually. Once you get in front of an audience, you remember why you like it.
When did you realize, okay, I think I'm going to be okay with this?
The first dress rehearsal, when we had people there laughing. And then the old pro goes, oh, yeah, that's nice. I like that. Yes, I remember that.
Is it a big difference playing the same character every single night over and over again and playing in a television series where it's different plot lines, it's different stories?
It's pretty much the same.
Really?
Well, in the sense of once you've got your character solid, and if you're right for the part, that's the important thing.
Right.
If you are right, I was good casting for Mrs. Patmore. It happened that I was a good fit.
Yeah.
And in a different way, Miss Hannigan is something I can do. There's plenty I can't do, but this happens to be something that I can bring something to.
And you're enjoying Toronto so far?
Oh, yeah. I haven't really done as much exploring as I would like to, but I will soon.
Yeah, you and I, we'll go to Tim Hortons right after this. We'll have a good time.
Okay.
That'll be great. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Q on CBC Radio and PRI, Public Radio International. I'm speaking with Lesley Nicol, who's currently playing Miss Hannigan in Annie the Musical. Most of you listening might know her as Mrs. Patmore on Downton Abbey. Did you have any idea how big this show was going to get?
No, not at all. Nobody did. In fact, Julian Fellows, who wrote every single word of it, says if he knew it was going to be that kind of a success, he would willingly write a string of them. But nobody knows quite why it did what it did globally. You know?
Well, I'll ask the same question I asked before. When did you realize that this was bigger than just a television show?
It was a slow burn, I suppose. The first thing I remember happening that was kind of cute but it kept happening was. This is right at the beginning of the first season. Women would come running up to you. And this isn't a British thing, as you know. We're all a bit reserved.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So that was unusual.
You all form lines.
We definitely do that.
Yeah, right.
And we're not always that confident about going up to people and congratulating them. But
yeah.
women would run up and say, my husband likes it. And that was consistent onwards. And then when it came to America, the funniest thing I heard was somebody said, well, my brother-in-law, I mean, he lives in Seattle and he only watches the Super Bowl and drinks beer. And he won't have anybody come to the house on Sunday night now because he's addicted to Downton Abbey. So that was the first kind of weirdness. And then Hugh Bonneville, who played Lord Grantham, came to America quite early on. And he came back and he said, you're not going to believe what's going on. The enthusiasm is astonishing. And he went to the White House in some gathering at the White House with Elizabeth McGovern, and Hillary Clinton elbowed people out of the way to cross the room to tell him that the Clintons would all sit there as a family in their PJs on a Sunday night and watch Downton Abbey.
Well, what do you think it was?
I don't know the answer to that, Tom. I'm not going to try and make one up because for years now we've been trying to give a sensible answer, and I don't know, except... Right. Hopefully it's good storytelling, and the values of it were quite high, and the cast gelled. That was a piece of good work on the casting director's part, but also good luck. I fell in love with Sophie McShare, who played Daisy, that my little scullery maid, you know, and because we got on so well and have a similar sense of humour, Julian noted that and used it and developed that relationship that we had. He wasn't going to make Mrs. Patmore funny at all. But because she and I sparked off each other from day one, he saw that. He's a good writer, you know, and he did that with all the characters. He built things to suit what you could do.
Was it hard to walk away or was it time?
Oh, blimey, it was difficult. I'm still in touch with him. In fact, Sophie's coming here to do a TV show. And so I'm thrilled because she actually played Annie.
No
in English,
way.
she did. When she was a kid, she played Annie.
Wow.
She sent me a message on the first night. This is typical Sophie. And she said, good luck. She calls me Telly Mummy. Good luck, Telly Mummy. And give Annie a slap from me. So I remember the last time I did some ADR, you know, when they do final vocal
You
tweaks.
go into like a booth afterwards and you re-record.
And you always have to do
I'm
that.
a real industry pro. I know
exactly.
about that.
You know about that. But not everybody does. So I was in Los Angeles where I live, and I had to go in and do the final scene singing Auld Lang Syne. And I was bawling my eyes out because I was on my own in Los Angeles with none of my friends, and the screen was there and they were all on the screen. It was very emotional.
You've said that your career feels a little bit more significant because your success happened when you were in your 50s. It happened later in life.
Well, you appreciate it, yes, for sure. But I'll tell you something. On Downton Abbey, we told the kids, the youngsters, very early on, this is unusual. Just make sure you really...
What do you mean it's unusual?
A show like this, going like that.
Right.
They wouldn't know that was unusual. They might think, oh, I'll do another Downton Abbey next year. What we wanted them to be aware of was this is something to cherish.
Because I have to imagine there were moments before this where you must have been doubtful about how things were going to turn out.
Well, I've always made a living as an actress, and I consider that to be a success in my terms. If you can make a living doing what you love, then I was never in it to be a famous face. I love the job. I love doing the job, and so it was satisfying enough. But of course, this was life-changing. And the fact that it came later, I totally value it, and I'm grateful for it.
So how does it feel to be back on the stage now? Like, is this something you want to continue doing, keep doing stage?
Well, you know, the funny thing is, people say, which do you prefer? And what usually happens is, for instance, 2000 to 2002, I did Mamma Mia in the West End for 2 years, which was great. It was the early days of the show. It was very exciting. But by the end of that, I was desperate to get back on the screen. So that's what usually happens is you do one, and then by the end of it, you go, oh, I want to do the other one now.
Right.
And I have been blessed to be given the opportunity to do both. You know, not everybody gets that.
Maybe me and you start a little show together. How about that?
What do you think?
Oh, maybe.
Have a two-person show.
Grown-up Annie, but he has a beard and wears a jean jacket. What do you think?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Lesley Nicol, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.